The air was too clean, too precise. It hummed with the low mechanical rhythm of a vessel built by beings who thought perfection was power. Commander Elias Grant sat on the cold floor of his containment cell, his wrists bound by a dull blue light that pulsed with each beat of his heart. The metal walls curved inward like the ribs of a great beast, breathing faintly. He had seen worse prisons in his lifetime, jungles, trenches, deserts scorched by nuclear fire, but none that felt this sterile, this inhuman. Beyond the transparent barrier, 3 of them watched him. Vradar, predators in every sense, tall, scale creatures with slitted eyes and angular faces that shimmered with biochromatic light when they moved. Their laughter came in short, clicking bursts that echoed down the corridor. One leaned closer, the faint mist of his breath fogging partition. Elias didn't flinch. He hadn't flinched in decades. "So this is what remains of humanity," one hissed. His words filtered through a translator chip that gave him a dry, synthetic edge. An old man wrapped in skin and arrogance. Elias raised his eyes, the faintest smile tugging at his cracked lips. "Funny," he murmured, his voice raspy but steady. "I was about to say the same about you." The alien's crest flared with color, amber and green, a sign of irritation, Elias guessed. He'd learned quickly to read the patterns. Observation had always been the first weapon of a thinking creature. Another Vradar, larger than the rest, stepped forward. His armor was black and steel interlaced with organic fibers that pulsed faintly, as though alive. His presence silenced the others. Commander Zortek. Elias had heard the name through the static of intercepted transmissions before his capture. He was the kind of leader who saw mercy as disease. "You speak boldly for prey," Zortek said, circling the human like a lion appraising a dying gazelle. "Do you know what we are?" "Hunters," Elias said. Zortek tilted his head. "Predators, the apex of 1,000 worlds. We take what we desire because none can stop us." Elias studied the alien's movements, the way his claws flexed unconsciously when he spoke. "Then why the cage?" he asked softly. "If I'm prey, why am I still alive?" The alien commander paused. The question seemed to linger in the air, quiet and dangerous. Then Zortek laughed, a harsh metallic sound that resonated in the chamber walls. "Because you amuse us, human. You fought well for one so fragile. You killed 6 of my soldiers before capture. I wish to see how something so breakable resists breaking." Elias leaned back against the wall. "You want to understand resistance?" His tone was calm, almost conversational. "That's the first sign of fear." The guards stirred uneasily, exchanging glances. Their language shifted to sharp, fast syllables, too quick for the translator to follow. Zortek raised a clawed hand, silencing them. "You mistake curiosity for fear." "I mistake nothing," Elias said. "You came to a planet you didn't understand. You thought conquest was simple. You thought we'd run." The alien grinned, rows of serrated teeth catching the dim light. "You did run." Elias nodded once. "At first. So do all intelligent predators. They retreat, observe, adapt. That's how we survived the beasts that were faster, stronger, hungrier than us. You think claws make you powerful." He lifted his bound hands. "We built claws from metal. You think your armor makes you superior? We built worlds from dust. You think you're apex? You're just at the top of your own food chain." For the first time, Zortek said nothing. His eyes narrowed, calculating. Behind him, one of the smaller aliens hissed in their native tongue, a nervous trill. Elias let the silence hang, then broke it with a sigh. "Water," he said. "What?" "I like a drink. You've been talking a while." "I'm an old man." The request, so mundane, seemed to confuse them. Zortek gestured, and a guard fetched a vessel filled with clear liquid. The barrier flickered as the drink was passed through an energy slot. Elias took it, his fingers steady despite his exhaustion. He drank slowly, then looked at the glass. "Interesting design," he said. "Hydromolecular stabilization field. Efficient. You understand our technology?" "I understand everything I need to." He set the glass down with deliberate care. "You built this ship to be indestructible, didn't you?" Zortek straightened. "Our fleet has conquered 14 species. Not one has resisted. Elias smiled faintly. Then you've never fought one like us. The alien tilted his head, amused again. Human arrogance is almost endearing. Tell me, old man, why do you speak as though you have power here? You are a relic of extinction. Elias leaned forward, the dim light cutting shadows across his face. Because I've seen extinction. I've walked through it and come out the other side. You can't scare someone who's watched his world burn. His eyes met Zortek's, unblinking. And you can't intimidate a species that learned to thrive in fear. Zortek stepped closer to the barrier, close enough that Elias could see the faint scars crossing his scaled skin. You believe humanity still matters? Elias's voice lowered to a whisper. You wouldn't have come if we didn't. For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of the ship filled the silence. Somewhere deep within its structure, a rhythmic vibration pulsed through the floor. Engine cycles, Elias guessed. Every sound told him something. The oxygen ratio in the air, the frequency of the lights, even the slight static on the translator feed. Information. That was the real battlefield. Zortek's expression shifted from amusement to irritation. I grow tired of this conversation. You will tell us where your remaining colonies hide, or your death will be slow. Elias chuckled softly, a dry, unshaken sound. You still don't get it, do you? The alien's voice rose. Get what? The difference between a predator and an apex predator. Elias stood now, slowly, his age showing in the stiffness of his joints, but not in the steadiness of his gaze. Predators hunt because they must. They need to feed, to dominate. But apex predators, they hunt because they can, because it's in their nature to rise, to outthink, to outlast. Zortek sneered. Grand words for a dying creature. Elias nodded. Maybe, but you should pay attention to dying creatures. Commander, they tend to have nothing left to lose. The alien's crest flared again, signaling irritation. He turned away, barking orders in his native tongue. The guards followed, leaving Elias alone under the sterile white light. The door sealed with a hiss. Elias exhaled slowly and sat back down. His reflection shimmered faintly in the transparent wall. An old man, frail but unbroken. His pulse band still glowed, but weaker now. He flexed his wrists, testing the rhythm of the restraints. A small, almost imperceptible smile crossed his face. Through the metal floor, the ship's pulse continued. A heartbeat he was learning to recognize. Every vibration told him where the power lines ran, how the systems breathed. Knowledge, he reminded himself, was the sharpest blade. He glanced at the empty cup on the floor. Tiny droplets clung to its edge, refracting the pale light into shifting colors. Beautiful, almost fragile. They think we're done, he whispered no one. They've mistaken quiet for weakness. The hum of the ship deepened, a faint tremor running through the walls as if the Leviathan outside had stirred in its sleep. Elias closed his eyes for a moment, his breath steady, his mind already working. Let them laugh, he thought. Let them think they've caged an old man. The real hunt was only beginning. The interrogation chamber was circular, lit by a pale blue glow that pulsed with the rhythm of the ship's core. Elias stood in the center, no longer bound, but under the unwavering gaze of 6 Vrothar guards. The restraints had been removed at Zortek's command, not out of mercy, but mockery. The commander wanted to see if the frail human would attempt defiance now that he had been granted the illusion of freedom. Zortek paced slowly around him, claws dragging faintly across the metal floor, producing a whispering scrape that was almost serpentine. Your kind fascinates me, he said. You build machines to compensate for weakness, then worship them. You fight until nothing remains, even when surrender would preserve life. I wonder, human, why do you persist? Elias met his gaze, the deep amber eyes reflecting 1,000 unspoken cruelties. Because we learned long ago that persistence is the only difference between extinction and evolution. The commander's crest flickered with amusement. Evolution, he echoed, tasting the word as if it were foreign. We were born perfect. Our ancestors needed no tools, no artifice. The strong survived, the weak were consumed. That is nature. Elias's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Then you've already stopped evolving. The room grew still. The translator struggled to convey the nuance of human tone, but even stripped of context, the insult was clear. One of the guards hissed, stepping forward, but Zortek silenced him with a raised claw. The commander studied Elias for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "You claim superiority," Zortek said finally, "but all we see are ruins on a dead planet and an old soldier clinging to pride. Tell me, what makes your species so extraordinary?" Elias tilted his head slightly. "Do you really want to know? Or are you asking so you can laugh again?" "Both," Zortek said. Elias took a slow breath, the air sharp and metallic in his lungs. "We began at the bottom," he said quietly, soft, slow, fragile. "Every other creature on our world was built to kill us. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor. We should have vanished before we began. But we didn't. Do you know why?" Zortek said nothing, but his eyes narrowed. "Because we learned. We watched everything that tried to eat us, and we stole their tricks. We studied the hunt, the chase, the kill. We made fire to mimic the sun, stone blades to mimic claws. And when that wasn't enough, we imagined better tools, better traps, better ways to survive." He looked up, his gaze unwavering. "You call yourselves predators, but you've never needed to think like prey. You've never felt desperation sharpen your mind." A low murmur rippled among the guards. Zortek's voice was quieter now, but harder. "You romanticize struggle. You think suffering is strength." "It is," Elias said. "Pain teaches faster than comfort, and survival teaches better than victory." The alien scoffed. "You speak like a philosopher, not a soldier." Elias's tone darkened. "I've been both. Philosophy without struggle is vanity. Struggle without thought is death." Zortek stopped pacing. "You speak as if your species transcended instinct." "We didn't transcend it," Elias replied. "We weaponized it." The silence that followed was different this time, heavier, edged with curiosity rather than contempt. The translator hummed faintly, struggling to match cadence as Elias continued. "When wolves hunted us, we watched their packs. When eagles circled above, we learned to look up. When the night stalked us, we made fire and refused to be afraid of the dark. Every predator that tried to destroy us became a lesson. That's what it means to be human. To learn from what hunts you until you become something even fear can't define." Zortek tilted his head, his crest shifting from green to a muted gray. "And now you hunt us?" Elias smiled faintly. "You came to us first." The commander leaned closer, his voice dropping to a low hiss. "Then prove it. Show me what makes you more than prey." For a moment, Elias said nothing. The soft vibration of the ship's systems filled the silence. Then, almost casually, he raised his hand and gestured toward the observation wall. The lights in the chamber flickered. A faint ripple passed through the floor, like a heartbeat skipping a beat. One of the guards glanced around uneasily. "Commander?" Zortek barked a command, but the ship's hum deepened, a low thrumming that resonated in the bones. The walls themselves seemed to shift color, metal darkening to a bruised purple. Elias's eyes never left the commander's. "You wanted proof," he said softly. "Consider this a demonstration." Zortek's mandibles twitched in irritation. "What trick is this?" "No trick," Elias said. "You took me alive because you thought it would be entertaining. You didn't notice that my blood carried more than oxygen." The aliens froze. Zortek's eyes flicked to the ceiling sensors, the floor vents, the data ports lining the chamber walls. "What have you done?" Elias stepped closer. "We learn from the smallest things. Commander, viruses, for example. They survive by infiltrating stronger hosts and turning their own strength against them. We admire that efficiency, so we copied it." The commander's crest flared red now, full alarm. "Contain the human." But the guards hesitated. The air had begun to hum, the faint ozone scent of overcharged circuits filling the chamber. Energy conduits along the walls pulsed erratically. Zortek slammed his hand against the control panel, only to find it unresponsive. Elias's voice remained calm, steady. "You thought I was your captive, but every system on this ship, Your lights, your translators, your environmental controls. They're all connected, and your scanners never bother to analyze what was inside the bloodstream of your prisoner. Zortek bared his teeth. You infected us? I educated you, Elias said. The difference is perspective. The commander lunged, but a sudden surge of energy crackled through the floor, throwing him back. The guards staggered, their armor flickering with static. The ship's lights dimmed to blood red. Through the observation wall, Elias could see shadows moving, technicians panicking, alarms flaring. You won't survive this, Zortek growled. Elias's voice was quiet now, almost gentle. Neither will you. The alien's breathing grew ragged, fury mixing with something else, uncertainty. Elias could see in the way his claws flexed, the slight tremor in his jaw. For the first time, the predator understood what it meant to feel hunted. You see, Elias said, we learn to fight not with strength, but with imagination. You fight to feed. We fight to endure. That's the difference. Zortek's glare burned through the flickering light. You think this makes you gods? Elias shook his head. No, just survivors. That's worse. The deck shuddered. Somewhere deep within the ship, a reactor alarm screamed. The guards rushed to the exits, but the doors sealed before they reached them. Zortek turned back to Elias, breathing heavily, his armor humming with interference. What have you done to my ship? Not your ship, Elias murmured. Not anymore. The commander's snarl dissolved into silence. The light around them dimmed further, until only the glow of Elias's eyes remained visible through the red haze. I told you, the old man said, his tone unflinching. Predators hunt because they must. But we hunt because we choose to. Zortek lunged again, but the world lurched beneath him. The gravity shifted violently, throwing him against the wall. Sparks cascaded from the ceiling. Through the viewport, the stars outside twisted as the ship's trajectory faltered. Elias stood unmoved in the chaos, the faintest trace of exhaustion in his stance, but no fear. You wanted to know what makes us extraordinary, he said. Now you'll learn. The ship groaned under the strain of its failing systems. Zortek rose to his feet, eyes blazing with hatred. You've doomed us all. Elias nodded once. Welcome to humanity's lesson plan. The commander roared in charge, but before his claws could reach the human, the lights died entirely, plunging the chamber into darkness. And in that darkness, only one voice remained, steady, deliberate, and utterly certain. You thought you captured a man, Elias whispered. You capture a reminder of what your kind forgot to fear. Darkness swallowed the chamber, vast and absolute, broken only by the pulsing red emergency lights that flickered in uneven rhythms. The silence that followed was not empty. It was alive, trembling with the echoes of distant alarms and the faint metallic groan of a dying ship. Elias could hear his own breathing, steady, deliberate. Somewhere behind him, Zortek stirred, the scrape of his claws cutting across the trembling floor. Human! The alien growled, voice distorted by the static of his failing armor systems. You will undo this. Elias didn't turn. His gaze was fixed on the viewport, where the stars outside shifted and fractured as the ship lost control of its orbit. I can't, he said quietly. And even if I could, I wouldn't. Zortek's steps were uneven now, his balance faltering as gravity fluctuated. You think this is victory? You'll die here too. Elias allowed himself a small smile. Probably, but the difference is I expected to. The lights flickered again, illuminating the chamber in short bursts that painted them as silhouettes against the chaos. Each flash revealed more destruction. The fractured panels, the smoke curling from ruptured conduits, the faint shimmer of static crawling over the walls like ghostly veins. You don't understand, Elias said. You've mistaken survival for dominance. You thought strength meant control. But survival, he paused, looking down at his trembling hands. Survival is sacrifice. Zortek lunged forward, grabbing Elias by the throat with one massive clawed hand. His grip was iron, fueled by desperation rather than triumph. You destroyed my fleet, he snarled, shaking him. Thousands of my warriors. For what? For proof, Elias rasped. That even when we lose, we win. The alien's mandibles clicked furiously, and for a moment Elias thought he might crush his windpipe. But the commander hesitated, eyes flickering with something uncertain. Fear, perhaps, or confusion. It was difficult to tell the difference in a creature that had never felt either. "You're insane," Zortek said, releasing him. "A dying species trying to drag us into your grave." Elias staggered but did not fall. "That's the thing about graves," he said, coughing. "They're excellent places to plant something new." The ship shuddered again, more violently this time. The emergency siren screamed to the corridors, a mechanical wail that sounded almost alive. Sparks erupted from a broken conduit, scattering embers like fireflies. Zortek stumbled back, looking around as if seeing his ship for the first time. "You've infected the entire fleet," he said, his voice trembling. "Every vessel linked to our network, our communications, our power grids. They're all collapsing." Elias nodded. That was the idea. The alien bared his teeth. "You'll doom your own people, too. Your planet cannot survive without our technology now." Elias shook his head. "You never gave us anything we couldn't rebuild. The difference is we'll learn from this." "You won't." For the first time, the mighty commander seemed smaller. His voice lost its venom, replaced by disbelief. "You would destroy everything just to prove superiority?" "It's not superiority," Elias said, his voice calm. "It's nature. We adapt or we vanish. You've been the same for millennia, chasing the same instincts. That's why this was inevitable." The ship lurched, and both of them were thrown to the floor. Gravity collapsed entirely for a moment, leaving them suspended in midair before slamming them down again. Elias felt his ribs crack, but didn't cry out. He pushed himself upright, gasping through the pain. Zortek struggled to rise as well, the glow from his armor sputtering and dying. The Predator's eyes met the humans across the ruined chamber, two remnants of civilizations that refused to yield. "You could have lived," Zortek said. "You could have begged, and I might have spared you." Elias gave a small, weary laugh. "Begging is for prey." The alien roared, charging again, claws outstretched. Elias sidestepped, barely avoiding the blow, his movements fueled more by instinct than strength. Zortek struck the control console instead, shattering it in a spray of sparks. Electricity danced across his armor, searing his flesh. The smell of burning scales filled the air. Elias steadied himself against the wall. "You still don't get it," he said softly. "We were never fighting to win. We were fighting to remind you that we exist." Zortek staggered toward him, smoke rising from his wounds. "You'll die forgotten." "Maybe," Elias said, "but not silent." He reached down to his wrist, where a small metallic band flickered faintly beneath torn fabric. It was damaged but functional, its single purpose engraved into his mind. He looked at Zortek one last time, his voice low, almost compassionate. "You called yourself a predator," he said, "but a true apex predator doesn't just kill. It changes the world it hunts in. It shapes everything that follows. That's what we are." The alien's eyes widened as Elias pressed a control stud. A pulse of light surged outward, expanding like a heartbeat. For a moment, everything went white. Then sound returned. The deep groan of metal, the scream of atmosphere venting into space. The pulse cascaded through the ship's systems, disabling everything it touched. Engines died, weapons silenced. Across the fleet, 1,000 vessels flickered out like candles in a storm. When the light faded, only fragments of sound remained. The echo of breaking hulls, the whisper of static over the comms. Elias lay against the floor, breathing shallowly, the device on his wrist dark and cracked. The air was thin now, and growing colder by the second. Zortek crawled toward him, each movement slower than the last. "You've doomed us both," he whispered. Elias's voice was faint, but his eyes were steady. "No, I've freed us." The alien stopped, confusion clouding his fading gaze. Elias continued, his words calm and deliberate. "Your kind believed strength meant never bending. But that's why you broke. We bend, we break, and then we rebuild. That's why we endure. That's why we're the apex." The commander's breath rattled once, then ceased. His massive form slumped forward, motionless. Elias leaned his head back against the wall, staring at the flickering lights overhead. He felt his heartbeat slowing, but there was peace in it. The mission had succeeded. The fleet was crippled. Humanity would have time to recover, to rebuild, to rise again. He thought of Earth, of the wind that once carried the scent of rain, of the forests and the oceans, and the laughter of a world that refused to die. He smiled faintly. "We're still here," he murmured. "We always will be." The chamber's lights dimmed to black. Silence settled once more, vast and consuming. Then, through the void, a single transmission flickered to life, repeating in an endless loop, a fragment Elias's voice sent before the final pulse. "If they laugh at you for being human," it said, "remind them what that means." Hours later, long after the ship had gone still, a faint shimmer crossed the stars above the ruined vessel. Human rescue craft approaching, guided by that very signal. They would find the wreckage, the data, the proof of what one man had done. And when the message reached Earth, it would echo through every surviving colony, every hidden outpost, every remnant of humanity clinging to hope. They were predators. The recording would say, Elias's voice steady and eternal. But we were apex predators. Far beyond the silent stars, the universe listened, and, for the first time,